So there I was, a few months before the global pandemic swept across the planet, strolling through my local fine art dealer showroom. Because, well, doesn't everyone do stuff like that in their free time? I casually strolled, hands clasped behind my back, tediously perusing the elegantly displayed modern and classical works, sculptures, paintings, and this thing kind of looks like a banana nailed to a wall. It's interesting. And then, among the beautiful displays and framed works, I stumbled upon this. The Wee Knife Co. Æterna. Now, before we move any further, let's go ahead and get today's etymology lesson out of the way. Lord knows we'll need it, considering Isham's history of names as wild as the knives they are attached to. Speaking of wild knives with wild names, this is the Wee Knife Co. 918 Æterna. Æterna is a Latin word meaning eternal, everlasting, perpetual, or without end, and that little AE symbol can be found in languages across the globe going back thousands of years. It was originally revealed at Blade Show 2018 and then later released to the knife-buying public the next year in 2019. According to the man himself, the Æterna's looks and styling was inspired by the traditional Japanese honesuke knives, used for deboning poultry and an assortment of other small woodland creatures. Regardless of where the inspiration came from, this thing, to my eyes, is absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous. Every sweeping line perfectly juxtaposed every straight line and jagged edge. Whether it's opened or closed, it draws you in from across a crowded room, beckoning you. Or maybe that's just me. This is the 918B, I think. I'm assuming the B stands for black because, well, it's black. The handle is this beautifully sculpted mix of carbon fiber and titanium, almost imperceivably fused to become one seamless piece. And I do mean one piece. That's because this is an integral. Somehow, someway, by some form of witchcraft, it's machined out of a single piece of that titanium carbon fiber blend. So you get this stunning, seamless back spine, perfectly flat, with a little Isham shield on the tail end, so you don't forget who's behind all this madness. And because it's an integral, we only have 2 screws. Zero tolerance, I'm looking at you. One for the pivot, one for the pocket clip. So there's no obtrusive pieces of hardware taking the attention away from that stunning profile. Like, everywhere you look on this thing, you're met with more and more stuff that makes you go, wow. Like, wow. All of that blade fits perfectly in that slim, curvaceous handle. And wow. I didn't even realize this thing had a flipper tab. Or, wow. I can't tell you where the carbon ends or the titanium begins. And another wow moment for me was the pocket clip. A nice, clean, and stylish milled titanium pocket clip that aligns well with the rest of the design. But the wow came when I went to slide it into my jeans pocket. And wow, I can't believe it works, and works exceptionally well. Honestly, at this point I'm starting to feel like Owen Wilson, but I guess there are worse people to be, right? The Æterna is available in a handful of colorways. This one, blacked out with the stone-washed M390 Wharny blade up front, or you can get it with friggin' gold titanium and black carbon fiber, which is uber bougie, and I'm way into it for some reason. Or you can go with stone-washed titanium with black carbon accents, or you can get really wild and pick one up in Wee's extremely well-done flame anodized finish. All of them look dynamite to me, so you really can't go wrong with any of them as far as I'm concerned. And now then, onto that blade. As I said before, it's this gorgeous, full-size Wharncliffe, milled out of a relatively thin piece of Bowler M390, and of course, me being the Wharny whore that I am obsessed with this slicer. It's a full flat grind, and the blade is very tall, so she is super thin behind the edge, and it definitely met my standards out of the box as far as sliciness goes. But that wasn't good enough for me, apparently, because I've since reprofiled mine to a 17-degree edge, and now it just melts everything it touches, including fruits and veggies, which I've found myself chopping up a lot when this guy's in my pocket. And you get a nice sharpening choil that is kind of a finger choil as well, but definitely what I would call a risky choil. It still makes wielding and maintaining the blade all that much easier. Now then, onto the Ergos, which for me was another one of those wow moments. As insane and extreme as everything looks, this guy just melts into the hand. That nutty, alien, otherworldly looking profile just so happens to fit every square inch of the inside of the palm perfectly. And everything's just so foolishly comfortable. All the aesthetic craziness seems to serve a very important purpose when you pull out the Æterna to use. And speaking of use, let's move on to the action. The only place where the Æterna fell a little short for my extremely high fidgeting expectations. A lot of Isham's knives in the past have featured these tiny, damn near invisible little flipper tabs that stick straight up instead of jutting out. It does help clean up and streamline the back spine of the knife and the general aesthetic when it's closed, but for a full-time fidgeter like me, it seems to only impede my ability to flip and fidget with this thing. You kind of have to use the very top of your finger or even just the edge of your fingernail to get enough pressure in the right direction to get it open. So the whole flipping prospect here is hit or miss at best. But when it works, it feels great and makes a nice tinking sound when the bolster lock kicks into place. Outside of the flipper, we luckily get a semi-usable finger hole at the back top of the blade. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this is without its issues, because, well, let's just say that thumb flicks are still a work in progress for me, and the reverse finger flick took nearly a month to really figure out and get used to. And even still, it is very easy to miss flicks if you don't have your hand and fingers set just right. But once you tie down just how to get this thing open, and you go to close it, oh boy, those silky smooth ceramic bearings do their job just perfectly. And even though I wouldn't call this drop shut, it really takes almost no effort at all to get it closed once you move that adorable titanium bolster aside. So where does that leave us? I mean, after all, we're talking about, at retail, a $300 knife here. And one that most would consider to be an art knife more than a fidget toy or anything that would even closely resemble a utilitarian cutting tool. All in all, the looks have and continue to tickle my pickle. Every time I pull it out of the case, I release an audible wow to myself, and maybe to my cat if he just so happens to be in the room. I mean, for Christ's sake, look at this fucking thing. It's outrageous and ridiculous and everything in between from every angle. And it cuts extremely well and sports a blade made out of a modern top-tier super steel, and the ergonomics are exceptional, especially considering how unergonomic it looks in pictures. But my ADHD brain, always lusting for something to fidget with and fondle, was hoping for a bit more out of the action. And that's not to say the action is bad, no. The action is great. It just feels like you need a 2-year degree and 1,000 hours of on-site training to make the actuation feel effortless like it does on so many of my other knives, and so many of my other much more affordable modern knives. At the end of the day, this is a work of art first, and a utility-focused tool second or third or maybe even 10th. So, in our time together, it's surprisingly done a bang-up job as a utility-focused EDC tool, and it has seen quite a bit of use and pocket time, if that's not evident by the markings on the pocket clip. All things considered, I can't recommend this at full retail price to anyone. $300 is just too much money for a knife that requires a doctorate in physics to operate. But I will wholeheartedly recommend this to someone who wants a stunningly gorgeous, pedestal-worthy integral bolster lock piece of modern art, crafted out of the finest materials and made to exacting precision, that just so happens to also cut stuff pretty well. I think it belongs in a modern art gallery, but for the foreseeable future, my knife case or the inside of my pocket will have to do. So, until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.